Now that they are hunting caribou with snowmobiles, and with more younger people trying to go out hunting, are Inuit not involved in overkilling caribou and forcing them north? Well, this year I didn't have a job, so I went to the place where a lot of caribou is hunted, and people say that there is often some caribou that has just been left out there. I went out to find some dead caribou that I could use for fox bait if no one was going to claim it. But I never even found one. I don't think that the shooting of the caribou has contributed to the decrease of caribou.
Tamanna pikpaloa generalo kubbalunin.
So do you think that with the younger people not knowing how to hunt very well, and with the noise of the rifles and other sounds, the caribou are being frightened? They aren't scaring the caribou that often. If a young person is hunting, he will hunt maybe within a mile or a mile and a half range. In that 1.5 mile range, there is not very much movement or there is not very much noise when they are hunting. But I used to feel really badly because when I was counting caribou, there used to be a lot of noise. I think that when I was out with the counters and saw the mining and exploration activity, there was a lot more noise from those sources than the people hunting them. Has caribou hunting changed a lot from the past? Is there more killing today than before? I know for a fact from 1959 on the Inuit started killing field caribou. In the 1930s, 40s and 50s, the people always needed food and clothing. They wanted skins for boots and padding, and even at times when meat wasn't very good, they would hunt caribou for the fur. You know, if there had been licenses issued in those years, the wildlife people would have been very upset because one person might take as many as 300 or 400 animals in 1 year. It's true that there were a lot fewer Inuit then, but now hunters can travel much further in a much shorter time. So in which period do you think there were more caribou killed? They think that there weren't very many people before, but I know for sure that stores didn't help us at all in supplying food. With my wife and children and the dogs, in 1 week we could consume 7 or 8 caribou. We could eat that many because we had to feed both the dogs and ourselves. Some people who had more dogs had to take about 10 caribou in 1 week. Now this year, between November and February, I had taken only 11 caribou. If this had been in that earlier time, those 11 caribou would have lasted approximately a week and a half. But there is still some left, stored out in my boxes, because we don't have to share with the dogs anymore. So we are definitely not using as much meat as before.
Okay.
So you believe we use a lot less than before? Yes, a lot less. People that are going hunting now don't even wear caribou parkas. Before we used to have a lot of skins. In fact, even although all of our clothing was made of caribou skins, we caught so many caribou that sometimes we could not use them all, and they had to be stored. Do you think that wolves and crossings are responsible for caribou being killed as much today as in the past? Caribou don't usually die during the summer from chills, although in July, when they are tired, we would often see a lot of caribou that had died in the water because of chills. Sometimes wolves would get them. Some white people can't understand why this would happen at that time and not in the fall. But Inuk know that a fat and strong caribou will not freeze when it's crossing in the fall. But in July, when they are not fat and they are weak, they sometimes freeze trying to cross the water. They die in the water when they are trying to swim? Well, what about the wolves? Were there always a lot of them before, or were they always few like today? Maybe there weren't that many, but there seemed to be a lot. Perhaps it's because they never left the caribou. They followed them all the time. Wolves don't want to be where there isn't any caribou. About 1958 or 57, the biologists thought that there were too many wolves, so they gave me poison to kill off some of the wolves. That's when I started killing wolves with poison, because there used to be a lot of caribou near the Thelon, and a lot of wolves in big packs would stick around there when they found a lot of caribou.
Okay.
Can wolves kill caribou that are absolutely healthy, or do they just kill the weak ones? I know that wolves can choose whichever caribou they want to kill. They don't just kill anyone that they could catch, but they can smell which ones are the best to eat, and those are the ones they go after. When there were no white people, when there was no store around here, I was born in Chesterfield Inlet, and I started remembering shortly after. You could tell me what you remember and what you used to do before. In those times, a lot of people were poor. They weren't rich and they couldn't afford very much. Before, they used to have rifles called 44s. Those were the first rifles in the north, the 44s. Yes, as far as I can remember. But later on, longer rifles started coming. I remember a time when it was almost impossible to get a lot of things that I can get today. Inuit were very poor. All of us were poor. We were not like today.
Yeah.
When I started to remember, there were no white people in this area around Baker Lake. Inuit were the first people in this area. They came here by foot, and some of them were between here and Chesterfield Inlet, at the mouth of the river. During the summer, when the skins were good for clothing, they would start to walk inland and start hunting for their winter clothing and get caches for food supply in the winter. This used to be our grandparents' lifestyle. I didn't experience a lot of this because I grew up with the white people, so I am saying only what I used to hear. Sometimes the Inuit people used to be hungry, as you know, and there was nothing like welfare to help them, so the people that had the biggest food supply would help those who didn't. They would tell the poor and the weaker people to come to their camp and to try to survive with them. You probably remember this. I remember when we were in Back River for a while. We were helped a lot then. If Inuit found someone that had a hard time surviving, they would always try to help them. They wouldn't just walk away. If one camp was better off than the other, then they would always try to help each other. Today we could help each other more with food, but Inuit are totally different today to what they used to be in those times. We used to help each other a lot, helping each other to hunt and giving each other food and clothing when one was having a hard time surviving. During the spring, when there was still enough snow for our sleds, our grandparents used to pull their own sleds because they didn't have very many dogs. They used to have only 3 or so. Was this a long time ago? They used to walk to the coast to look for seal oil and comic material. They did this every spring, going down to the coast, and then they would come back during the fall. In fact, I remember that I didn't know very many things because I had a father that couldn't walk and a mother that was deaf. So my uncle and other people around me had to teach me how to hunt. I remember when we were traveling to the outlet of Baker Lake, my father couldn't walk, but he could steer the boat as long as he was helped. Who was your father? Ukiakot. When we reached our destination, we could see a lot of dry meat on the two islands. I remember this very well. There was a lot of meat drying. Everything was being dried right down to the bone. The heads, the hindquarters, the front legs, all were being prepared for winter. Was this just past the outlet? Right at the outlet. All that area was used for caribou crossing. Young people describe crossing differently, but we older people still call it crossing. I myself still call them crossings. Young people now have new and different words for everything from what we used to have. The outlet of this lake used to be used all the time for caribou coming from the south to the north, and in the fall when they were returning. Is that why those people had so much dry meat? Because they were right at a crossing? Yes, the only way they could take caribou there was by kayak. I don't remember too much else, but I remember they used to have caribou tents where the outlet of this lake is. The kind of tent they had was more like a teepee. This is what the older people used. Later on, when they started to use boats, there began to be a lot of movement at the mouth of the river, and the caribou started to slow down and stop using the crossing. I am just saying what I heard. The RCMP were the first ones to put up houses at the outlet. You know what I'm talking about. Yes, in fact, I have seen where the houses used to stand. Then later, I started to be with the Hudson's Bay Company. The people didn't seem to be too hungry at the time because they started to have rifles and other hunting things. This area used to have a lot of caribou that came from the south and passed through, going north. Then they would come back in big herds going from the north to the south. We know very well that a lot of caribou used to cross around Baker Lake, and in fact, caribou used to cross right where the community is fixed now. Were there any main crossings around here? Yes, in fact, Kazan River used to be a main crossing. Do you know how many caribou were killed before by the Inuit? I could tell you our grandparents' generation used to say don't kill animals that you aren't going to put in caches or that you aren't going to eat. If you are going to leave it behind for no reason at all, don't kill it. This went for everything, even the birds. When a hunter took caribou, he would take very good care of it, and he would leave nothing behind. In fact, if they were going to go near a crossing, they would tell people not to walk around at all, but to wait quietly on the other side of the river. Do you think that hunting has changed a lot? Yes, it really has. Everybody is changing their hunting style. We have rifles now, there are a lot of white people here now, and there are also mining people. They are really changing it, because they are walking around on the land and putting their footprints all over the place. Even though they don't have anything to hunt with, the miners I'm talking about now, they have an effect. Because when they walk on the land back and forth, this changes the caribou too. I hear today that they think Inuit are killing a lot of caribou, but I don't think they are killing as much as before. In the summertime, Inuit hardly catch any caribou, even though there are a lot of them. They don't even have much winter caribou clothing nowadays. If they get a parka, a pair of mitts, and kamiks, that seems to be it. Maybe one person in the family will have skin clothing, but before the whole family used to have it. The wives, the kids, right down to the boys and men, all used to have skin clothing, parkas, pants, boots, that fitted them really good and that were really nice. This was in the past. I really can't say whether they are killing as much caribou today as they did before. The only hunting that seems to go on now is during the winter. They seem to catch caribou, quite a bit of caribou, but only in the winter. And what do you think of the way young people hunt caribou? We used to be taught by our fathers, uncles, and older brothers and grandfathers, people of our own kin. I think it was better when they taught us, and I think it would be better today if young people were taught to hunt by their parents. Do you think it is important for young people to be taught how to hunt properly? It would be good if they were taught how to hunt, and not to just kill caribou for no reason. I remember when you took your first caribou, you would want to kill another one right away. But I think that young people now have to be taught why you do shoot the caribou and why you don't. People are saying that the caribou herd is decreasing. These are the caribou that travel from Manitoba up to Eskimo Point and beyond. Do you think they are decreasing or moving? I think they are moving. Sure, some of them are being killed because there are a lot of people in Eskimo Point and in Rankin. There's a lot of people in Chesterfield and a lot living here in Baker Lake too. We all contribute to the decrease in caribou, but I think they are all moving north. Yes, I think it's safe to say that, because we hear a lot about it. Also, we have hunted them and watched them for a long time. As you said, biologists know a lot of things about animals, but maybe they know their own animals. Caribou are our own animals, and we know their movement by observing them, even though we don't have scientific methods. I don't have anything against the white people and the biologists, but we know the caribou very well, even though we don't have any papers to prove it. I myself may not know that much, but the people who hunted the caribou before us knew their movements very well, and they knew where and when they were going to come, and when they would leave. I am not saying that we don't believe in biologists and that I don't like educated people, because we believe very much, for example, in doctors. I understand the biologists have studied about wildlife. But the Inuit have considerable knowledge of survival in the north. And if that understanding and knowledge were used, I think it would be better. I think if the biologists and the Inuit start to work together, it would be very helpful. If they can start agreeing on things, the biologists and the Inuit, I think things can go smoothly. Were caribou used in a lot of ways before by the Inuit?
Yes, and we are still using them today. They really have to be used here in the north.
How are they worked on?
You probably recognize these.
Is this caribou skin?
Yes. I hardly ever chew skins anymore. In the spring, we leave the skins outside and keep them damp, and they get soft like this.
How did the fur come off? Was there fur on this?
Yes, it had fur. We leave skins in water for a long time. Then we fold them up. And when the fur is easy to remove, we use this scraper.
How long does it have to be in the water?
In the spring, we put them in a lake or a small pond. Some of the little ponds are warm. So we put them in there and soak them, so the fur can come off a lot easier. Little ponds are very good for this, when they are not too cold.
So then how did you dry it?
We just put it outside and leave it out to dry. These techniques used to be used by men when they go out hunting. And they could even use them in water.
They didn't have store-bought boots then. Did it take a lot of time and care when you were going to make comics?
Yes, we had to make sure we didn't put a hole through the skin. We didn't want water seeping through.
So this very thin piece of skin has no holes on either side of it, even here along the seams where you sewed it.
We used to make sure that we didn't put a hole through the skin when we sewed. These ones are sewed just like they used to be sewed in the past.
The ones with no fur would be used in the summer?
Yes, if the men were going hunting for a few days, they wore them like boots.
What about in the winter? Was caribou used a lot too?
They used nothing but caribou in the winter. These ones here would be worn in the winter. I made them for my son to wear when he goes out hunting in the winter.
Is the fur on the inside?
Yes, it has fur for the winter. When my son goes hunting, he will be using them.
But made this so soft?
You use this scraper first, and then we use this one after.
Could you tell me how the skin is worked on after it is dried?
When it is dried, you use this scraper first. And then after, you use this one. And you use it like this. It sort of stretches the skin.
How did you make it like this?
You use this one.
Did you scrape it first?
Yes.
Did the skin in that parka used to look like this skin?
This parka is a man's parka. It's for hunting. This used to be our clothing.
It's very soft.
These fringes are not from the caribou. The ones we used to use for these are not used anymore. Nowadays, we just use these. We buy these from the store.
Which takes longer, working with or without fur? Which is harder of the two?
Working with fur takes a lot longer and is harder. Things that are made for winter have to be really soft and warm.
What other use was the caribou besides clothing?
Before, we used to have no matches, so we used these things to make fires. These all go together. That is what we used to light fires.
What is this?
The fat of the bone.
What is this?
This came from the land. This is a moss.
So this is caribou fat? How did you make it?
We cooked it.
So this was part of the caribou that was slit. And it was also eaten?
Okay.
What other uses were there for caribou? It was used for clothing. The bone fat was used for light. What other uses were there besides these things?
The whole caribou was used. I don't think we ever used to leave any part of the caribou behind. The whole caribou right to the skin and bones. The head, the feet. In fact, I have some hooves now that are ready for cooking.
What else would the hooves be used for?
The hooves take a long time to cook. Of all the parts of the caribou, they take the longest time to cook. We used to eat them, right down to the muscle and nerves.
What did you use them for after you ate them?
We used to play with the bones of the hooves. We used to stand them up and let them fight, and we would team up and have men for ourselves.
The bigger bones were men and the smaller bones were women? By throwing rocks at them?
Yes, we would use part of the caribou leg bone to throw with.
What was that piece called?
Oh, it was a part of the leg.
Has the way that we eat the caribou today changed very much from the way we used to eat it before?
I don't know what the older people do today, because I don't go very far anymore or visit very much. But I still use the caribou meat and the bone the way I did in the past.
You still do this even though you've moved here?
I still use the whole caribou. I use parts like these here, the sinew.
Were they very useful before?
Yes, they were. In fact, in the past we used to eat this part, the coating of the sinew. We used to remove it if it had fat, like this. And we'd eat it. My teeth aren't any good anymore. But we used to eat this all the time. This is the layer of sinew here.
So this will never rot as long as it has been dried?
Now that this is dried, it will never go to waste.
What else was the sinew used for?
You know how we go ice fishing? We used to braid it and make line out of it, and we would also use it for sewing.
Is it better than the ice fishing line that is bought at the store today?
Yes, a lot better. It's stronger than line we buy at the store. In the winter, store-bought line will freeze. But when there is ice formed on sinew lines, it's very easy to remove the ice.
Do you think that you will want to use caribou as much as you did before, like for food and clothing and other things?
Our land has always been cold, and it always will be. I think it's very important that people know how to prepare skins and use them in the future. No matter how much you buy and put on, clothing that is woven or made from manufactured fibers is not as warm as skins. Clothes bought in the store are very expensive. But skins are not as expensive. So I think it would be very good for people to learn how to use caribou skins properly. We hear about people freezing in the winter. That's because they use things that have been woven from manufactured materials and not skins. And I don't like to hear about that happening.
Wearing caribou clothing is important in the north, but the government biologists are saying that the caribou herd is decreasing. Do you think that is happening or not?
I usually don't believe them because I have to see things to believe them. I'm one of the people who can't believe a lot of things that I hear. When we were living on the land, every clear day, when we went out on the land, we could hear and we could see a whole herd of caribou. Sometimes, even before we saw them, we heard them. They sounded like thunder because of the huge number of caribou that were in them.
Do you think that the herd is decreased compared to before?
I don't really understand, and I also don't believe it. Before, our dogs used to have caribou for food, and we ourselves used to eat them. We used to always prepare ourselves to hunt enough caribou to last us a year, as well as feed the dogs. We used to dry caribou meat in the spring. We used to have a lot of dried meat when there were a lot of caribou. We used to use the bones and everything. We would have a lot of dried meat in the spring. After it had dried, we would put it away and prepare food for the winter and start caching caribou, so there would be enough food in the winter for both the people and the dogs.
So there was a lot of caribou killed before?
Yes, when there were a lot of caribou, you could see caribou in every direction for miles.
Has the hunting style changed a lot today?
Nowadays, we are just hunting for ourselves and not for dogs anymore. And I never hear of people killing too many caribou now. Before, we used to eat whatever we caught and also share food with people who were hungry. Now we are not like that.